capabilities across all domains. That includes $48.1 billion for naval and shipbuilding capabilities, $62.1 billion to reinforce U.S. air dominance, and $13 billion to bolster Army and Marine Corps combat capabilities. Our request will also provide $33.7 billion to strengthen our space architecture and $14.5 billion to develop and field advanced cybersecurity tools. It will direct $49.2 billion to modernize and recapitalize all three legs of our nuclear triad. And it will sharpen our tech edge through a $167.5 billion investment in procurement and $143.2 billion in R&D. Second, this budget will support our outstanding troops and their families. That includes raising base pay and housing allowances, investing in better housing, making child care more affordable, and funding vital work to prevent sexual assault and suicide in the military. And third, this request will help the department further deepen our teamwork worldwide. Our network of allies and partners remains a strategic advantage that no competitor can match. And you can see its power in our strengthening ties across the Indo-Pacific, in today's expanded and united NATO, and in the 50-country Ukraine Defense Contact Group that I convene. Our budget remains rooted in our 2022 National Defense Strategy. Our request positions the United States to tackle the department's pacing challenge, the People's Republic of China, with confidence and urgency. It will help meet the acute threat of Putin's increasingly aggressive Russia. It will help us tackle the persistent dangers from Iran and its proxies. It will help us take on threats from North Korea, global terrorist organizations, and other malign actors. And it will help us continue to deter aggression against the United States and our allies and partners, and to prevail in conflict if necessary. Now today, I want to underscore three key messages. First, even as our budget request abides by the mandatory caps set by the Fiscal Responsibility Act, it is aligned to our strategy. We made tough but responsible decisions that prioritize near-term readiness, modernization of the joint force, and support for our troops and their families. Our approach dials back some near-term modernization for programs not set to come online until the 2030s. Second, we can only reach the goals of our strategy with your help. And I'm truly grateful that Congress passed the fiscal year 2024 appropriations in March. And the single greatest way that Congress can support the department is to pass predictable, sustained, and timely appropriations. My third and final message is that the price of U.S. leadership is real, but it is far lower than the price of U.S. abdication. As the President has said, we are in a global struggle between democracy and autocracy, and our security relies on American strength of purpose. And that's why our budget request seeks to invest in American security and in America's defense industrial base. The same is true for the recently passed National Security Supplemental that will support our partners in Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan, and make key investments to increase submarine production. In fact, about $50 billion of this supplemental will flow through our defense industrial base, creating good jobs, good American jobs, in more than 30 states. So we're grateful for our partners in Congress who help.
How can you talk about U.S. leadership when we're supporting genocide in Gaza?
Committee will come to order. I'd like to formally request those in the audience causing disruption to cease their actions immediately. Security, I'm going to ask you to remove the disruptive persons.
It is illegal, it is immoral, it is disgusting. The whole world is watching what we are doing in Gaza right now. Secretary General, you are supporting a genocide. Stop supporting genocide. Free Palestine. Stop supporting genocide.
Apparently the protesters don't understand. We don't have a Secretary General in this country. With that, Mr. Secretary, you're recognized again.
Thank you, Chairman. We're grateful for our partners in Congress who help us make the investments needed to strengthen America's security through both the supplemental and the President's budget requests. The U.S. military is the most lethal fighting force on Earth, and with your help, we're going to keep it that way. And I deeply appreciate your support for our mission and for our troops, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you, sir.
General Brown, you're now recognized.
Chairman Rogers, Ranking Member Smith, and distinguished members of the committee, I'm honored to join Secretary Austin and Honorable Mike McCord to appear before you today. On behalf of the Joint Force, Department of Defense, civilians, and our families, I want to thank Congress for your steadfast support and the opportunity to testify on the fiscal year 2025 defense budget request, which reflects our shared commitment to national security. I also want to thank you for passing the National Security Supplemental, which provides vital support to our allies, partners, and our defense industrial base to counter aggression and strengthen our joint force capabilities and capacity in preparation for any future contingency. The global security environment is increasingly complex. The 2022 National Defense Strategy identifies 5 key challenges. The People's Republic of China, our pacing challenge, continues its risky behavior around the globe. The newly aggressive Russia with its unprovoked war against Ukraine. A reckless Iran, who, as we saw a few weeks ago, attempts to escalate regional conflict with unprecedented attacks and support of proxy forces. A destabilizing North Korea, which threatens regional security, and violent extremist organizations which leverage instability to advance their cause. These challenges are interconnected, which demands a strategic approach addressing the immediate threats while also preparing for future contingencies. It requires all of us to operate with a sense of urgency. Days after becoming the chairman, I laid out 3 expectations in my message to the Joint Force. Honing our warfighting skills has primacy in all we do. Modernizing and aggressively leading with new concepts and approaches, and trust is the foundation of our profession. Our military exists to fight and win our nation's wars. We train every day to ensure we are so good at what we do that we deter any adversary from engaging the U.S. in conflict. This budget requests $147 billion to sustain readiness and ensure the department can counter near-term threats. We are also focused on better integrating our allies and partners in our planning and operations by investing in critical programs and
Suspend. We will remain in recess until the disruptive individuals are removed from the chamber. General, you may proceed.
Sure. We are all focused on better integrating our allies and partners in our planning and operations by investing in critical programs and capability, expanding security cooperation, exercises, training, and interoperability. Our investments in readiness ensure the joint force can respond when the nation calls. While we are focused on readiness for today, it's critical to modernize and lead with new concepts to prepare for tomorrow. The department continues to invest in capability and capacity to outpace our competitors while transforming from costly legacy platforms that are no longer relevant to the threat. This budget strategically invests $167.5 billion in procurement, underscoring our commitment to equip the joint force with unparalleled combat capabilities across every domain. This budget also invests $143.2 billion in research, development, tests, and evaluation of future capabilities that will retain our strategic edge. Finally, this budget invests significantly in nuclear modernization, digital innovation, multi-year procurement of critical munitions, and the strengthened defense industrial base. With rapidly evolving threats and technologies, accelerating our modernization is crucial. Lastly, trust is the foundation of our profession. The joint force must build upon and uphold the trust in each other. Trust with our families, trust of our elected leaders, and trust of our nation. Enhancing the quality of service and the quality of life of our personnel is not just a moral obligation, it's a strategic imperative. This budget includes investments in quality of service efforts such as advanced training, educational benefits, and career development, while also investing in quality of life projects like housing, medical clinics, and child care facilities, as well as funding spouse employment initiatives, enhanced mental health resources, and robust programs to combat sexual assault. We must create an environment where all can reach their full potential. Trust that our joint force stands ready to defend our national interest, ready to deter aggression, and ready, if necessary, to fight and win our nation's wars. I thank you for your support and collaboration and our shared commitment to face the security challenges of today and prepare for tomorrow. We are living in consequential times, and there's no time to waste. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, General. I recognize myself for opening questions. General, I addressed this first question to you. You talked about what the budget would do. As we know, we talked about this as a tight budget. Tell me what we can't do with this budget. Tell me about some of the trade-offs that you've had to make as a result of this 1% increase.
Well, Chairman, I appreciate the question. As the Secretary highlighted in his opening remarks, what we had to do is we focused on readiness for the near term, and as we did that, there's some areas that we elected not to modernize, some capabilities that would deliver in later into the 30s, and so that's where we had to address some of the shortfalls in this particular budget by making those choices to focus on.
For example, give me an example of something that you deferred.
I'd have to get you more detail, Chairman, but as we look at the various capabilities, and I would say munitions is a key one of those that we've focused on, as well as we look at our shipbuilding, our sub industrial base as well, and aircraft.
How is this budget going to affect your training? Do you have an idea about that?
Well, not much, because we actually did focus on our readiness, and that's why the $147 billion is to focus on our readiness. We are very capable joint force, and using the capabilities we do have today while we pursue future modernization is where our focus is on readiness today, Chairman.
Okay, I would ask this to both of you. I know you've got to be concerned about this growing cooperation that we're seeing between Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. Do you feel like that this budget adequately resources our ability to deter their organized and unified aggressive behavior in the coming years, Mr. Secretary?
Thanks, Chairman. The growing nexus between the PRC, Russia, and the DPRK and Iran is concerning, and this is something that we are watching very closely. As we look at what Russia's doing, because of the damage that Ukraine inflicted on Russia's land forces, Russia turned then to DPRK for additional munitions and in the form of artillery munitions and missiles. Iran is providing Russia with drone capability, technology, and actual drones themselves, and that's made a difference in Russia's ability to recover from what the damage that Ukraine has inflicted on it. And then North Korea, again, it's becoming more confident because of its affiliation with Putin. So this is very concerning. Something that we're going to have to watch. Something that we're going to have to make sure that we have the capability and capacity to work with our allies to continue to deter and continue to promote peace and stability in each of the regions. But to your point, very concerning and something that we're going to have to stay on top of going forward. So.
General Brown.
I would echo the Secretary's comments about being very concerning and watching how these countries are working and somewhat interconnected. By the same token, what I have seen in the 7 months, tomorrow will be 7 months I've been in the job. I've engaged about 170 times with my counterparts from around the world. And what I found is, as the world has gotten more complex, the work with our allies and partners has strengthened. We watch how NATO has strengthened. NATO is larger, but as I engage with nations in Europe, they're focused on the Indo-Pacific, and the Indo-Pacific nations are also focused on Europe, because all these are it's a global threat to all of us. And that dialogue is definitely increased, and I've seen that happen in the jobs I've held as a senior leader.
When you talk to your counterparts around the world, what resources would they like to see us bring to the table as a part of that effort to combat or deter the behavior you just described?
Well, what I would highlight is they were concerned about our collective defense industrial base and bringing capability. One thing I do find as I engage around the world is that U.S. capability, U.S. equipment is highly desired. And we've got to be able to provide that capability and equipment, and those are the things that they are keenly interested in. They're also interested in our ability to work and be able to interoperate, even when they have their own defense industrial base that they're also trying to increase as well. And so it's how we work together and to break down barriers, be able to work across our industries, across our services, across our governments will be important.
Thank you, General. I yield to the ranking member.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, a ton of topics we could cover. I just want to ask one question, and that is on recruitment and retention. I know, Secretary Austin, this has been a particular focus of yours for some time. Can you update us on how we're doing? Obviously, the pandemic was a huge challenge coming out of that. There have been other challenges. Where are we at, in your opinion, on being able to recruit and retain the service members we need?
You're right, sir. COVID really caused us a significant problem in our inability to get into high schools and work the areas that we typically work for recruiting. Post-COVID, we have been able to reverse those trends, get back into the high schools, to advertise in the right markets, to reestablish contacts with centers of influence. Each of the services has made a concerted effort to hire the right kinds of recruiters and put the right kinds of recruiters out there to represent the services, and that's proving to be very, very helpful. As we look at where we are right now, we see the curves beginning to bend and in favor of more productivity. I expect that Army, Air Force, Space Force, and the Marines will all make mission this year, just based upon their forecast, and I attribute that to their hard work. I mean, they've been doing a lot to reverse these trends, and you know, this is the tightest job market that we've seen in a very, very long time. So there are plenty of jobs for people to have or to get, and so this has been very competitive. But I think the services are doing the right thing, and again, I have to attribute this to their hard work and their focus. The senior leaders are focused on this in a major way, and I talk to them about this routinely. On top of that, retention is the highest that it's been in a very, very long time. And so when troops join us, they want to stay with us. And a good part of that is because of what you continue to do to help resource us to provide for them and their families. So.
Thank you, General Brown here.
Well, thank you. As the Secretary highlighted, we do see a positive trend. And since I've been not only as a service chief watching this and coming through COVID and watching the numbers change, but also as a chairman, I've had a chance to sit down and meet with recruiters from all of our services. I've gone to one of our processing centers to take a look and ask questions about the things we can do to increase the throughput through our recruiting stations. At the same time, it's how we engage. And one of the things when I talk about trust, it's how we that have served what inspired us to join, and how we inspire the next generation, and how we engage and show all the opportunities that are available by serving in our force or serving the nation at large. And so we do see some positive trends. And I would also say the same thing with retention. The numbers, we're meeting all of our retention, and we're doing very well there. But we got to continue. We can't rest on our laurels, and that's why the support of this committee and the Congress, particularly as you look at the quality of life, does play a role because it plays a role not just for the member, but it plays a role for their family as well.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Chair, now recognize General from South Carolina, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank each of you for being here and your service on behalf of our country. And to me, it's so clear that the primary function of the national government is to do for us what we cannot do for ourselves, and that's national defense. And so your service is more important than ever. And putting that in the context, too, what we're talking about is deterrence of peace through strength. And so what you're doing could not be more important. And I particularly appreciate military service. I have 4 sons who have served in Egypt, Afghanistan, and Iraq. My Navy son, the benefit of military service is so exciting. My son served as a Navy doctor in Naples. I now have 3 grandchildren who speak perfect Italian. So I look at military service as opportunity to serve, but opportunity for fulfilling and meaningful life. And so what you're doing, and I'm so happy to hear about retention being good, Mr. Secretary, that's great. Putting that in perspective, too, your service today is more important than ever. It's been referred to in bipartisan with the terminology by Ranking Member Smith of partnerships among adversaries. The leadership that we have with Chairman Mike Rogers, who stood up against the dictators, and then your reference to authoritarians or autocrats against democracy. I like to phrase it as dictators with rule of gun who are invading democracies with rule of law. This is not a war that we chose. This is a war that war criminal Putin chose on February 24, 2022, when he invaded Ukraine and conducted mass murder. This is another indication with the invasion by Iran with its puppets of Hamas of Israel on October 7. And we need to do all we can to deter the Chinese Communist Party from an invasion of the terrific country of Taiwan. With all of this in mind, over and over again, we should be grateful. And I am very happy, General Brown, that this week it's reported that finally that long-range ATACMS have been provided to the people of Ukraine to defend their country, provided by Germany, the United Kingdom, and now the U.S. Additionally, I hope that cluster bombs are provided as quickly as possible. We have excess that need to be destroyed. I know a way to destroy them, and that is to send them to the people of Ukraine. It's been reported that war criminal Putin is jamming various precision munitions, causing lower accuracy rates for targeting than advertised. And it's very important that we equip Ukraine with the latest technology. With F-16s being provided to Ukraine by the Netherlands and Denmark, will the department be considering to have joint air-to-surface standoff missiles to be more advanced precision fires of the F-16s in the delivery package to Ukraine? General Brown.
As we bring on the F-16s, it's not only the airplanes, but it's the training of the pilots, also training of the maintenance, but also making sure we have the weapon systems to go with it. And that's part of the conversation we're having with the countries that are not only contributing F-16s, but as part of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group, there is an Air Force coalition that the United States is part of, and that is the dialogue that we're having to not only just get to the airplanes, but also get it to a full capability.
And a good news, Secretary Austin. In December, Japan announced it's transferring Patriot interceptors back to the U.S. to replenish our stockpiles. Earlier this month, there was a joint statement with Japan. The administration wants to pursue co-development and co-production of missiles for forward deployed in the Indo-Pacific. This is great for the Indo-Pacific. It really follows, indeed, NATO coming together with Sweden and Finland, the assistance by the EU, of all people, for the people of Ukraine, for Europe. But with the Indo-Pacific, are there other examples of defense cooperation agreements that can be pursued to deter the dictators who seek to destroy Western civilization?
Well, thanks, sir. As you know, we have done a lot of work to strengthen our relationship with the ROK. We have promoted a trilateral relationship between the ROK, Japan, and us. As you witnessed months ago, the President held a summit here in the United States with the leadership of those three countries. We've strengthened our relationship with the Philippines. And so now we have the ability to operate alongside the Filipinos in more sites in the Philippines. And 3 years ago, the leadership was going to disinvite us and not allow us to operate in the Philippines. But that
Hey,
relationship...
Mr. Secretary, my time is up. But again, it's exciting to see countries come together that we have not before, from the Philippines to Sweden and Finland. Thank you very much.
Gentleman's time expired. You're not recognized, gentleman from Connecticut. Mr. Courtney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to both witnesses for your diligent service and your testimony today. Mr. Secretary, one of the smartest actions which Congress and your department made last year was enacting AUKUS authorities. I want to particularly compliment your legislative team who worked with a number of us on the committee to successfully steer a very complex package into last year's NDAA. As you laid out on page 16 of your testimony, it's not just an aspirational plan. AUKUS is moving out fast on many fronts. For example, I had the pleasure to welcome the first 3 Aussie naval officers to sub school at the Groton Sub Base in Connecticut, where they learned proficiency in the operation of nuclear-powered submarines, a key AUKUS Pillar 1 goal. All 3, by the way, graduated in the top 5 of their class, and another 100 of their colleagues are going to be following in their footsteps. Mr. Secretary, having been on this committee for quite a while, it was quite striking to me the amount of focus in your statement on the need to grow and strengthen our nation's defense industrial base. On page 20 of your written testimony, you highlighted the department's publication last January, the National Defense Industrial Strategy, which was a first for the department to its credit. And that report honestly laid out, warts and all the painful history of neglect of that base, which goes back decades, and acknowledged particularly the damage that procurement instability from the Pentagon has done. Coming from a district with a submarine shipyard that was decimated by such instability from 1990 to 2010, I could not agree more. Over the past 13 years, however, Congress has led the way to stabilize that yard and other yards and their supply chains with steady 2 Virginia submarine per year procurement. And the workforce has rebounded from a low of 9,000 to 23,000 today. COVID's pandemic did slow down production, and it's undeniable that the recovering pace needs to continue to pick up. But I would note that contrary to the narrative coming out of the department, starting last fall of 2023, 4 submarines have been or will be delivered to the Navy by the end of 2024. USS Rickover, New Jersey, Massachusetts, and Iowa, and Idaho and Arkansas are slated to be delivered in 2025.